Oh, what's up, everybody? We're live
Da-da-da-da-da.
with the exceptionally handsome these days, Ben Greenfield.
Yes, I've got facial hair.
Yeah, it's powerful, powerful Ben
I'm a
Greenfield.
big boy now. That's right. My wife,
How-
my wife actually says I look mature. So
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't quite go that far, but I think it's strong. I mean, you're strong
well,
mid-20s right now, easy.
yeah. Anytime you can grow credibility on your face, without it, as I mentioned before we started recording, looking like my brother's version of a beard, which is basically pubic hair on the chin. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, that was a thing though in some warrior cultures, like how long you could grow your beard, or maybe that was just the Dothrakis from Game of Thrones.
Pubic hair was a thing in warrior cultures.
Getting pubic hair on your face for sure. Yeah, gluing it in. Yeah, that was definitely a thing. But that was probably because they had boys actually fighting in the military though, like 12-year-olds trying to like wield swords and shit. So if you actually had a beard, it meant that you lived long enough to have a beard, and probably you
take a look at you. Okay, you love here. Here's your sword. Now go fight. You know here. You stay home. You make a bread. Okay, one more year.
Well, we're here to talk today. I wanted to talk to you a bit about recovery because, as you know, Halloween is coming up, and people are pushing for gains because Halloween costume A across the world is mostly naked. That's Halloween costume.
Where you were going with that.
Now, Halloween costume B is the things that you put on top of you being mostly naked. So people are pushing for gains. Right, Lando? I mean, Lando's been in the gym. He's just been doing easy curls all day, just pushing for gains, right? But in order to get the gains, you need to focus on recovery.
You don't have kids, do you? Because Halloween goes from being like a sexy ass holiday where you're dressed up as a cat or some kind of a superhero with body paint and a thong, and like this Halloween, like my wife is a giant fat marshmallow. I'm a graham cracker with like a giant cardboard like box around me, and our kids are like chocolate in the other part of the graham cracker. So I mean, like the Halloween takes on a whole new meaning of kids. Yeah. But
I understand that. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But so I guess
we can get as fat as we want before Halloween.
So I guess for the people who don't have kids, who are pushing for gains, and body's a little worn out, like myself as well. So we're gonna go dive into some recovery, both some of the training methodologies to help you restore, and obviously I'm just kind of being tongue in cheek about Halloween. This is important all year round. Some of the nutrition and some of the other different techniques. And you're the perfect guy for that because you do extreme shit to your body. So you got to figure out how to recover when you're, doing marathons and swimming long distances and all the shit that you do.
Right. And even more extreme shit. I'm totally not just pulling this on my ass, pun intended. I did a ozone water enema this morning.
Ooh.
That was a new one. I've tried out the full-on organic coffee enemas, but an ozone water enema to clean out the insides. Every week I actually do that to increase bile flow and stimulate the liver and clean out the colon. And had never used ozonated water before, but my entire interior of my colon and my anus are now like an indoor chlorinated swimming pool.
Prove it. Just kidding. I mean, don't prove it. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I know that I've done colonics, so the difference between an enema and a colonic, for those who want to know, enemas you can do at home, basically just a bag or a squeeze tube of liquid, and it just goes up one time, and then whatever else can come out comes out. Colonics are like repeating that for like 30 minutes or 45 minutes or however long it takes. Doing that for quite a while.
And any amount of colonic inflammation particularly responds really well to ozone therapy. And you can buy like super duper expensive like ozone, they're not enema kits, they're like ozonators where it's actual like gas based ozone, and you can go to some clinics and get this done. But you can also just like make ozone water like the same as you would drink for clearing up the upper GI tract, and you can use it as an enema too. So
for people who are like, I need a really good reason to put anything in my ass, because there's a good portion of people who need like a strong for some people it would have to be like life-saving procedure. For some people it's somewhere in the gray area where they just need a strong reason. What would be some of the reasons that you would recommend people to do this?
Easy. For that, it'd be irritable bowel syndrome or IBD, like anything related to you feeling as though stuff isn't coming out the right way when you take a dump, or you got bloating or gas, or anything related to like large intestine issues. This can help clean some of that up. If it's due to like bacterial imbalances or colitis, just straight up inflammation. Ozone is really good for inflammation. Here's another reason to shove some up your.
Do you support it with like bifidobacteria, like after you're finished, and a lot of probiotics?
Afterwards, yeah. If you want to, you can follow it up in case you care to stick something up your butt twice with a probiotic enema. You can take your probiotic capsules and you can break them like open and put them in the water that you're going to use in your enema bottle. And if you want to enhance that even more, you put in butyric acid capsules, which they're almost like food for the bacteria. So, and like butyric acid capsules just smell like shit. I mean, like they're horrible, horrible smelling capsules when you break them open. But you can actually put that in afterwards to like rebuild all the flora in your colon. So, and if you want to go a third time, put something else up your butt. I don't know if you've tried this, Aubrey. You can use THC suppositories in the evening, like a high for your crotch. You ever tried this?
No, I haven't. There's so many other ways that I can get high. Okay, so, that plugging in my ass has not been one of them.
You can't get a localized high for your crotch though. just by vaping.
It's just my asshole that's high. I promise.
I mean like in any shop you can get like coconut oil capsules, and they're like THC based capsules. You're supposed to swallow them, right? They're like 10 mg THC in a capsule, but you can also use them as like a suppository. And when you do this, it concentrates the high right in your crotch.
So that doesn't make any sense, Ben. How does that even work?
30 minutes pre-sex.
Doesn't just go transdermal into your blood and get your whole self high?
No, it's the same mechanism behind like the have you ever used like Bond oil, like any of these like cannabis infused oils that they sell for sex?
No, I
they
haven't.
use as like a lube. Same thing. It concentrates the high right around your genitals or wherever else you happen to put it. So it's really interesting. You can get like a concentrated delivery. You can also do it with a THC-based enema.
What a high genitals and a high asshole. What does that make you feel?
You feel amazing. Actually, it's really cool. It's just what it sounds like. It's like a high for your crotch.
I like it. Well, for everybody listening here, definitely please try it out and tweet at both myself and Ben Greenfield and let us know how it goes when
anything else you discover by shoving things up your butt.
When your genitals are high as fuck.
We'd love to hear it.
Good. Yeah, I mean, are you kind of when you're doing these kind of cleansing processes, do you ever do any of the clays, like the zeolite or bentonite or the activated charcoal or any of those to help kind of flush everything through the normal alimentary direction?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, the best thing to do is you can use like bile acid stimulators. Like I'll use like an essential oil that's got like ginger and stuff like that in it. You guys have your On It digestive enzyme that has some pretty good bile acid stimulants in it. Lemon juice is really good. I'm a big fan of fennel and licorice. My body does really well with those. I've actually done some Ayurvedic typing, and there's like 3 different Ayurvedic types, and I'm a Pitta type, so my body does very well with these herbs like fennel and licorice as digestives. But if you combine these type of things with just natural digestives, so it's a pretty good 1-2 combo. As far as the clay, I have used stuff in the past called Edible Earth. It's made by Clay, I think is the name of the company. It's either Magnetic Clay or Ancient Minerals. And I'm a fan of that stuff, but it tends to bind both the good and the bad, especially activated charcoal. So, if you're taking a whole bunch of other supplements or putting THC up your butt, you might actually be absorbing some of the good stuff that you're also trying to put into your body. So you got to be careful about your timing.
Yeah, definitely want to take it on an empty stomach. And for those of us trying to get gains, we may not ever have an empty stomach, which is also the problem.
That's right.
Yeah, it's difficult.
That's right.
Yeah, I found when I was coming back from Peru, I had some digestive stuff. Obviously, anytime you go to South America, Central America, that's certainly a risk. And the clay, a combination of Saccharomyces boulardii, which is a probiotic, which is really antagonistic to the harmful bacteria that you might find in your stomach and helps you out that way, along with the clay, was what ultimately won the day and got me back to shit and solid again and feeling like a normal human. That was that seemed to be the combination. And it was really bentonite, zeolite, all of these different types of clay. They acted very similarly. And the charcoal was good too. I took some activated charcoal, but that seemed to be the combo for anybody who's feeling that.
It's a good way to keep yourself from painting the back of the toilet seat.
No doubt. No doubt. All right. Well, let's get back to our original topic, which was recovery. So, I haven't got a chance on this podcast to talk about the recovery protein, which, actually I owe you a little tip of the cap, a little nod, because I was unsure about creatine just because of the way that it was kind of pushed when it first came out on the market, loading phase, all of my own personal experiences with it, which was GI distress, at the super high quantities that they were recommending you take it, and the loading phase concept. And, but I talked to you. Yeah, exactly. I talked to you and then started to do some more research and realized that, taken more commonly supplementally, it can have some advantages. So we put that in there with some BCAAs, some colostrum, some goat whey, some coconut water solids, and put together just kind of a general recovery protein that's pretty tasty. But just wanted to kind of go over some of those things. They're all pretty basic, but go over some of those things with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually, I was telling you before we started recording, I actually had some of that last night with the Pau de Arco bark tea, which is actually, a lot of times I'll mix this stuff with like coconut oil or not coconut oil, coconut milk, or I've got a couple of goats in the backyard. So speak of colostrum, I'll use some raw goat's milk sometimes, but is my new favorite to use as a mixer. It's got a lot of really cool, they're called beta lapachones. Beta lapachones, I forget the exact pronunciation, but they're precursors for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, or NAD, which is something that people are actually paying like thousands of dollars for to get injections of in like anti-aging clinics. You can actually get a lot of these same precursors in your body from basically you take Pau de Arco bark tea, make your tea, and what I do is I just put it in warm water, a few spoonfuls of it in warm water, let it sit overnight in a mason jar, and then you blend it with something that'll make it lipid soluble, so it actually gets absorbed by your cells. So I use it's like a soy lecithin, which has a lot of like lipid compounds in it, and you blend that for about 3 minutes, and it makes this foamy, milky tea that you can use to mix up stuff like this recovery protein we were talking about. So it's a nice little evening blend. Nice.
Now, because for people who want to stay away from soy, do you worry about the phytoestrogens in soy, or is that something that you understanding it sparingly?
Yeah, in something like that, you don't get a lot of the phytoestrogens. In like a tofu or soy milk or a more concentrated version of soy, you do. And so for that reason, if I'm eating soy, typically I'll go for a fermented form of soy, like a natto or a miso or a tempeh. Mm-hmm. We do natto here, where we'll just get a starter from the Asian grocery store, and you can just mix that with a bunch of other soybeans that you've soaked and cooked. And you actually get the bacteria from the natto that you buy from any Asian market or the Asian section. It spreads to all the other soybeans. It's like a virus, it just takes over. But it's cool. It's all this good bacteria growing like mucus all over your little pan that you spread everything out on. And then, dude, you can wrap that up with white rice and a little mustard and like a nori wrap and make yourself a little sushi burrito. It's good stuff. But yeah, generally I like the fermented form of soy.
Yeah. So, but for those of you who want to, I think sunflower lecithin is available and will act similarly to the soy lecithin. I don't think there's a dramatic difference in mechanism of action there.
Sunflower lecithin is actually a really good choice as well. Glad you brought that up. And it's got the same type of fat soluble compounds in it.
Yeah. And then the Pau de Arco is also, for those of you who are, having issues or potentially having issues with candida imbalance, that's one of the traditional herbs that's recommended in a lot of places of the world. That's something that I've struggled with. So I've done quite a bit of research on that in that application, but I'm excited to hear about the crossover applications with the NAD. I think that's definitely something I'm going to add to my repertoire, is the Pau de Arco tea mixed with the sunflower lecithin, throw in a little recovery protein, maybe a little MCT. Boom. Got something pretty good there.
Boom. Who knows what'll happen? You might grow a beard as glorious as mine.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I tend to have a stronger mustache than the rest, so I have to be careful. I have to use like extra trimmers around the mustache part. It's the gypsy in me that wants to grow that mustache strong, you know?
Right, the big curly one.
Yeah.
Up on the other end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A circus ringmaster look.
For sure. So let's talk to people a little bit about creatine. I know we did that on a former podcast, but that was a long ass time ago. Just some of the benefits of, some of these basic things, creatine, BCAAs, things that we've probably heard about, but people maybe aren't taking. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with creatine, it's really interesting. I mean, we all know it as the molecule that assists with strength and power, based off the fact that our phosphogenic energy system, which supplies the majority of our energy needs for about anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds of intense effort, is reliant upon the splitting of ATP and the replenishment of the phosphate molecule for that ATP comes from creatine phosphate. And so the idea is that if you have extra creatine phosphate on board, you'll have extra ATP to rely upon for short, explosive efforts. And so most of us, think that the football players and the power lifters, weightlifters, CrossFitters, whatever, are all going to be the type of people who would benefit from creatine. But it's really interesting. Let's take a deeper dive into the creatine research. For example, we see creatine as actually being something, or creatine phosphate more specifically, something that contributes to aerobic energy production even during longer efforts. It's actually something that can assist with the production of ATP by the mitochondria during aerobic endurance-based efforts. So, I remember that research was something I came across way back when I was studying exercise physiology at University of Idaho, when our exercise physiology professor had us go out and do research on creatine. And I found out that it can actually help with aerobic activity. At that point, I was kind of a triathlete, and so I started getting more and more interested in creatine. And so it turns out that it can be used for endurance. But I think what's also kind of cool is that they've shown, and granted, this is more in people who are creatine deficient, which would be people who are perhaps not eating a lot of meat, or vegans or vegetarians. Creatine can stave off cognitive decline and even improve cognitive performance. Working memory tests, the type of things that we test for in cognitive performance tests, similar to like what you guys do with Alpha Brain. They found that as little as 5 grams of creatine per day can assist with the cognitive decline that can occur when you have a creatine deficiency. So it can almost be used as a little bit of a smart drug too. Again, granted, that's assuming you're creatine deficient. If you have adequate creatine, you might not notice much of a difference in terms of mental function. Another interesting thing with creatine though is recovery. I mean, you exhaust your phosphate pools, your ATP pools, when you're exercising. The faster that you can replenish those, the faster you're going to recover. The more you're going to have available for the next day's workout. And so it's used, in this case, when we're talking about recovery, this is a way to restore ATP more quickly. And you can take straight up ATP too. I mean, like ATP is available in supplement form. It's not hard to find adenosine triphosphate, but creatine has so many other crossover benefits. I'm a fan of going straight to creatine phosphate.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've noticed. I've been taking it, and of course, it has a couple other things. But I've noticed that, and this may also have to pertain to the BCAAs as well. But I've noticed that I'm keeping weight on, and my my ability to push, longer through a workout and still maintain energy resources, since pretty heavily being on the recovery protein, has definitely improved. I mean, I put on a significant amount of weight in the last 2 weeks, and I think that's been the primary change in my diet. How much do you think of that could be the creatine? I know creatine also helps with the hydration of muscles. Your muscles carry a little bit more water, which could also be contributing to the weight gain.
Yeah. So intracellular hydration. You definitely get intracellular hydration. If you overdo it, you actually get quite a bit of extracellular hydration too, and you start to get, the bloating and some of the cramping issues due to tight spaces within the muscles that people will get when they're taking the recommended 15, 20 grams of creatine and doing loading phases and going through all these, special protocols and tables that you find in the bro science forums. Most of the good research on creatine is just 5 grams a day. No need to load, no need to cycle, no need to deload, just 5 grams a day year round. And that, people ask me, like, what supplements do I recommend that just everybody take? And I'm a fan of genetic testing, stool testing, blood testing, urinary hormone testing, actually figuring out what you're deficient in and supplementing accordingly. Using supplements like a laser equipped sniper rifle. But if you don't have the money to do that, or you don't want to go out and get all the tests, I tell people a good multivitamin, good fish oil or some type of an omega fatty acid, and creatine are going to be 3 of your biggest wins. And if you had to throw a 4th in, some kind of a greens powder just to get a shotgun full of micronutrients. But I mean, if you're just going to take any supplements, you're going to multi, fish oil, creatine, and greens, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I actually recommend the same, even to the athletes that really take nothing or haven't paid any attention to nutrition. The only difference with the multivitamin is I generally focus a lot of that on mineralization. So get them some kind of multi-mineral, some either fulvic mineral, or increase their Himalayan salt, or really focus on the mineralization. I feel like people tend to be more mineral deficient than vitamin deficient. And some of the multivitamins have a decent mineral, whether how available those minerals are, how much you're going to absorb. I sometimes have some questions, but I think you're absolutely right. Between the krill oil, the greens powder, and now creatine is also something that, after having gone too far with it, with the, as you said, when I was in high school and college, that kind of bro science model, loading phase, 20 grams a day, having a bad experience, being off it for a while, but now being back on it again. And I've put on like an unusual amount of weight, and it's good, like feels like healthy weight in the last 2 weeks, like 8 pounds of like clean weight, which is really hard for me to do. And granted, I was coming back from a trip from Peru, so I was already a little bit low, so it made it easier to make those gains, but it's been significant. I could be, I do. Yeah. I mean, as yourself, I do put a lot of things in my butt. So,
I swear, it's the creatine.
I think that's how it happens, right? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not into reproductive, too deep in that, but I think if you do that too much,
that's how I explain it to my kids. That daddy gives mommy some creatine, and that's all it takes. The important thing, of course, when you're talking about gains and putting on pounds, you can't just take creatine and get swole. You'll recover faster, and you might get some of those cognitive benefits that I talked about. And if you're aging, by the way, there's actually a proven benefit for staving off sarcopenia too, meaning that whether or not you're deficient in creatine, you simply don't lose muscle as quickly once you get above, and I don't remember the age that they use in the studies they've done on seniors. Typically it's 50 to 60 years old. But if you're using creatine at that point, you actually have a slower rate of muscle loss than if you aren't on creatine. So there's something to be said for its use in the older population as well. But for just gains, you still have to subject the muscles to a load when you use creatine, because the idea is that it allows you to get the extra 1 rep or the extra 2 reps that you normally wouldn't be able to get because your phosphogenic pools would have been exhausted by that point.
Yeah.
Right. So
and that tends to be, and that's also the other thing I've noticed is just that that workout that was really tapering off at 30 to 40 minutes is now extending to 40 to 50 minutes, and I'm able to get a little bit, even by alternating muscle groups. And most of the things I do are dynamic and unconventional, but even just allowing myself to push a little deeper and still be able to recover, I think has been the significant portion. How much do you think, though, the BCAAs play a part in that as well? And is that, is that just kind of like is that very similar to protein, or in your mind, is that like a separate category that needs to be handled and addressed?
It's pretty dissimilar. You get a lot less ammonia buildup when you use like a straight up amino acid versus a protein powder or steak or chicken or something like that. I mean, it's just basically a pre-digested form of protein. The cool thing about amino acids is they can also stave off central nervous system fatigue, because in many cases what happens is you get a tryptophan buildup, which occurs when you're breaking down muscle or exercising for long periods of time, and bonking, right, which we all associate with hypoglycemia or low blood glucose levels, is often not due to hypoglycemia, but actually due to a combination of low blood levels of amino acid combined with tryptophan crossing the blood-brain barrier uncompeted for with some of these other amino acids and causing you to feel sleepy and fatigued and to kind of want to throw in the towel earlier than you would normally. And so by keeping your blood levels of amino acids elevated, or by keeping your pool of available amino acids elevated, you can stave off a lot of the central nervous system fatigue that would otherwise normally occur during like a voluminous exercise session. So when you say you can work out for longer periods of time, you're probably feeling some of that as well.
Yeah.
Now,
that makes a lot of sense.
As most people know, amino acids are also used to just repair muscle fibers. So you get some of those benefits as well. But in the case of like a branched chain, I think more could be said for staving off fatigue by just providing you with the amino acids, the leucine, the isoleucine, and the valine that's necessary specifically for exercise, because those are the amino acids that can actually be utilized as a fuel. Whereas a lot of the other amino acids are primarily utilized for repair, for neurotransmitter formation, things like that. The branch chains are more of kind of like the workout fuel.
Sure. So the other element that's important for any kind of recovery is handling the inflammation response. And, that's something that we all have to deal with. And I think my personal strategy has been, now you don't want to attack that immediately post-workout, because some of that inflammation response is necessary as part of the recovery cascade. Am I accurate in saying that? You want to kind of give yourself a moment after you finish working out before you start really trying to combat the inflammation?
Yeah, I mean, we hear about like whatever curcuminoids and turmeric and ginger and these like, blends of whatever tart cherry juice and high ORAC compounds that really have good antioxidant capacity, and even like cold showers and cold baths, right? Like that's all the rage these days. People doing the Wim Hof method and and doing their cold therapy and jumping into the cold shower at the gym. The problem is that all of those anti-inflammatory strategies actually can quell the natural inflammatory response that you want post-workout to induce recovery and to enhance your training response and to even enhance your own endogenous production of antioxidants. If you just try to shut all that down as much as possible post-workout, you limit your gains. You actually want your body to be in a slightly inflammatory state post-workout. So if you're going to do like, let's say you're like doing Wim Hof and you want to do the cold shower technique and you're working out at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. in the afternoon, you might want to do the cold stuff in the morning, right? Or at 7 or 8 p.m., a few hours after the workout. And the same could be said for, vitamin C, vitamin E, turmeric, any of these other antioxidants or anti-inflammatory compounds. You want to save them for a little while after the workout as far as the strict antioxidants go.
Yeah. I find that before bed is the best time for me. It helps me sleep. Somehow, yeah. I don't know whether it's the slight dehydration that happens naturally at night or just something that having to do. But I notice that if I have inflammation when I sleep, I'm much more apt to wake up after a couple hours, and it's a little harder to fall asleep. And I think that's one of the products that I take is one of your products. It's your CBD, your CO2 extracted CBD. And I mix that with some liposomal curcumin, which I found from, I think the company's New Medica, which is really good. And a couple other, kind of natural, some fish oil, some different things like that. Little Himalayan salt.
Put it up your butt.
What? Yeah.
You put it up your butt.
100%. It's in a squeeze tube. I mean, what else is a squeeze tube for? I mean, why else would you put it in a squeeze tube?
Frosting the cake, sticking stuff up your butt.
Exactly. I mean, if it's in a squeeze tube, that's where it goes. But yeah, that
after you frost the cake.
You could I've frosted so many cakes that way, you'd be surprised. Every birthday, that's how it goes down.
There's going to be so much cake left over after your next birthday party.
Anybody who wants their cake frosted, just deliver it over to Onnit with a little Aubrey Post-it note, and I'll be sure to frost it for you. Extra bacteria. You may have to deal with a little bit of E. coli, but other than that, it's going to be really good for you. It's going to be like beneficial. But yeah, I mean, before bed, that's the protocol that I've been using, and I think that makes a massive difference, and also go ahead.
Oh, I'm on the same boat with you. I'm a huge fan of cannabidiol. Pretty bad. You don't get any of the psychoactive or the paranoia-inducing properties of THC. If you are using THC and you just chose the wrong hybrid, or you've got too much sativa in your system or whatever, it can actually knock down a lot of a lot of the distracting effects that THC can have, kind of like take the edge off it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got some really cool anti-inflammatory properties. That's actually one of the things that CBD in particular is most well known for, is quelling inflammation, shutting down cytokine production, and causing a decrease in anything from like, joint pain to a lot of the things that can build up within the body and something like chronic inflammatory syndrome. So plus it's relaxing. It's got some in higher doses. In lower doses, it's more focus inducing. In higher doses, depending on what you're using, I mean, for something liposomal like you're doing, you don't need quite as much as you normally need for sleep. Like normally you'd need like 100+ milligrams for something like that. Typically like 30 to 50 milligrams just knocks you out. But yeah, I mean, I've got some up by my bedside, and I do the same thing pre-bed, just to assist with inflammation during sleep and to assist with like relaxation and sleep in general.
Yeah. So if you're going to go, if you're going to kind of chart the day, how you want to optimize this, I would say for me, the early morning, that's the time to do some of the Wim Hof method, some of the hot, cold exposures, some of these hermetic stressors that can kind of work both the inflammation and recovery response in your body. Take that in the morning.
Yeah.
And
freaking every morning for me, I'm on the same boat as you, dude. It's about 20 to 30 minutes of infrared with a bunch of breath work, sometimes, and then 5-minute cold soak out in the forest. That's
awesome that you have the cold soak in the forest option available. That sounds dope as shit. But for the rest of us, just have the fucking courage to turn that shower all the way cold. It's like a little battle with yourself in the morning. Like, do you have it in you today?
Yeah.
Like, do you have the fucking moxie to make that happen? Or are you going to fucking, chicken out and go for the warm or the hot shower? And man, when you actually do it and you get through that point, one of the reasons why Wim Hof says that cold is his teacher, cold is his God, it's not because of the cold itself. It's because what it trained him with his breath, because you get in that cold, and then the cold stimulates the hyperoxygenation practices, the natural breathing.
Yeah, the mammalian dive reflex.
Yeah. And then that's going to, the combination of the cold plus the breath, that's going to set you up for a hell of a day.
Right, exactly. That's your vagal nerve tone, the wandering nerve that travels through your entire body and triggers gut health and your entire parasympathetic nervous system. That's all governed by your vagus nerve. And one of the most potent ways, vagal nerve tone, in addition to meditation and yoga and gratitude journaling and singing and chanting and meditation and all these ancestral practices that many of us don't do anymore. Dancing. It's cold. Specifically that dancing, cold shower, cold water, cold soak. Rick Rubin is he's a music producer, and I've talked with him a little bit about cold, and what he's done is he just has he buys these big old like commercial ice production units, right? The kind you would find in restaurants. You can get these pretty cheap on like Craigslist or eBay, and you can keep like a commercial ice maker if you want to in your garage. And you can go down to your local feed store, right, where you get like stuff to feed cows and horses. You can get a huge soaking tub for less than $100. And I mean, it's easier to make yourself an ice bath without too much, too many logistical difficulties, and just have something like that ready, even a couple of times a week, to increase vagal nerve tone. Doing the cold showers is a good idea, but if you want to hack it, it's not that hard to actually get a commercial ice maker, one of these tubs, and just like have that set up. And then going back and forth from that to the heat it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest feelings in the world.
It's one of the, if you're ever in like a shitty physical, mental, psychic, emotional, spiritual, whatever, if something's just funky and you want to change direction, going from doing that kind of hot, cold protocol with the breathing, that's the quickest way to not have to think your way out of what you're dealing with. Just like say, all right, fuck it. I can't figure this out. Things are funky. I'm not feeling well. How am I going to change the course of my day? Like, do that. Like, unequivocally, that's the absolute best thing you can do.
Jet lag. I don't want to exercise. I want to sweat. I need a detox. Like, there's so many benefits to hot cold contrast. Yeah, but you were saying you do that in the morning, and I'm on the same page as you. You do all the anti-inflammatory stuff, all the recovery stuff in the morning. If you're doing like a hard workout in the afternoon, evening, it's a good 1-2 combo. because also in the afternoon or evening, that's when grip strength peaks. That's when the reaction time peaks. That's when post-workout protein synthesis peaks. That's when your body temperature peaks. There's all sorts of reasons to save the hard workout for later on in the day. Do the rest and digest type of stuff early on in the day, the vagal nerve tone type of things early on in the day. And it's a really, really good 1-2 combo.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up. I want to do more. Hopefully the people listening are as well. You just
I'll stick stuff on my butt with the ice.
That's how it gets started, right? A little anal and a hot and cold. I don't know how to better start the day than that. A little stimulate.
That's right. Before you know it, someone's running out of a sauna with a cake froster.
You just did some crazy training too, and I wanted to touch on that. Some kind of myofascial French 7-hour myofascial release kind of program. Why don't you talk to us about that for a second?
Honestly, I didn't know shit about it until 4 days ago. But I had this guy approach me who wanted to teach me how to stretch my fascia. He actually saw me on, I think it was Instagram, hanging from an inversion table and talking about fascial integrity, because that's one thing that I'll do is I'll do a bunch of foam rolling to free up knots in muscle tissue, and then I'll do traction, using like resistance bands or using an inversion table to spread the joints apart, which then increases the movement of synovial fluid in and out of the joint. It hydrates a joint when you apply traction to a joint, when you stretch a joint. And one of the things that keeps that from occurring in joints is tight fascia or immobile fascia, or even the type of fascia that you would see prevalent in someone who is hunched over a computer, shoulders forward, wrists bent into flexion, ankles in dorsiflexion, knees a lot of the time kind of locked out. Basically, you see almost this fascial pattern that can get trained in a modern work environment that creates that hunched over, defensive posture. The idea is that there's this form of training. It's called ELDOA, ELDOA. Even if you Google it, it's hard to find a lot of good information about it. It kind of flies under the radar as a form of training, but it's extreme myofascial stretching. It's like stretching on steroids. And the idea is that you consciously elongate all of the joints. So, a typical ELDOA posture, you might be sitting on the floor in extreme lumbar extension, extreme lordosis, and you're looking forward with both arms stretched out in front of you as hard as you can possibly push them out in front of you, as though you're trying to dislocate your own shoulder joints, with your hands spread as wide as possible, your hands in full extension, your wrists in full extension, both of your feet out in front of you with the toes spread as wide as possible, the knees forced down into the floor. And it's really weird. You feel this head to toe, full body fascial stretch that feels as though you're being, it feels like you're being quartered by a horse, but somehow you're producing this stretch, this traction all on your own, just you and your body. And in a typical session, you'll go for 2 hours through like 20 different positions that hit every single shred of fascia in your body. And I did this Friday, I did this Saturday, I did this Sunday. Today is Tuesday. And all day yesterday, Monday, I felt 10 inches taller and my joints were more open. And I even used a couple of the postures that I learned during the workday to elongate my body after I was I use a standing workstation a lot of the time, but still you feel kind of hunched over and kind of tight after standing for a few hours. It's an amazing form of training. I'm going to try and get the guy on a podcast at some point, and I really don't know how to. I don't know if there's a lot of CDs or books or methods on it, as much as a few fringe instructors wandering around the globe, teaching this to people they see on Instagram. But it's a really, really cool form of training. It's basically like self traction on your joints, and I'd recommend if anybody's listening in, just like Google it and look into it. You might be able to find an instructor near you or something like that. I haven't started looking into how you can learn it.
Very cool.
It's really, really cool.
I find that I find myself doing my own variation of that. If I eat about 10 milligrams of THC and I'm just chilling in the house, I'll find that there's ways that you can stretch muscles that you don't normally think that you can stretch, like stretching your traps and the fascia in your traps, just by kind of extending your arms, moving your neck, and stretching the fascia in ways that doesn't seem like a very vigorous stretch, like a classic stretch where you're really trying to pry the muscle apart. But just by extending out farther than you normally would and kind of shifting the posture, you can get some stuff done. And it sounds like this is just a more, a more comprehensive system where they've developed these actual postures instead of just kind of feeling it out on my own and sensing tightness and dealing with it.
Yeah, he actually called that, the guy that taught me called that retropulsing, where I'd shove my head out to the left and my neck out to the left, and then shove my right arm out to the right, and then put that right arm in full extension, try to distract that shoulder joint, and all of a sudden you get this intense stretch in like the side of your elbow, all the way up your arm, out to the top of your head, and then you do it to the other side, but you hold these poses for like 60 seconds, and you're dripping in sweat by the end of a session. You haven't lifted a single weight. You haven't really done like any squats or jumping jacks. You're just freaking stretching. It's really cool stuff.
Dope, man. Well, Ben, this is a pleasure as always, my friend. You're a wealth of knowledge, wealth of resource. You got a dope podcast. You got social all geared up. But where should people come find you if they want to come looking?
In my bathroom, upside down. Go to bengreenfieldfitness.com. It's my site. It's where I put out articles, podcasts, videos every week, all sorts of goodies over there. So it's a good place to go. Cool, man. When are we going to hang next? Are we going to cross paths anytime soon? I get down to Austin at some point. Yeah, I come down there for Paleo FX every year. Somebody was trying to get me to come down and shoot pigs from a helicopter with some kind of a fully automatic gun. I politely decline that because I'd rather have my bow out in the forest and do it the fair way. But yeah, I might come down there and hunt at some point. I might come down there to Paleo FX, and of course, the offer still stands for you to come up here to the forest of Spokane, Washington, and throw shit around and shoot stuff. That'd be fun. My archery game's getting much tighter, so I might have to take you up on that here pretty soon. Yeah, man, we got to get you into one of those train to hunt competitions. No doubt. That's the next big thing. That'd be fun. All right, my friend. Great talking to you as always. All right, cool. Catch you later, dude. Take care, Ben.